Thank you so much for your patience. We are now recording. So thank you again, families, for joining us. We hope this to be quick but informative. And again, please ask us questions. We know that we sometimes will use education jargon and language, so we apologize. It is the field that we are in. If I find I'm not feeling 100%, so if you see me muting, that's just me not wanting to cough through this whole thing. So I do thank you for your patience. Mr. Romano, next, please. So as we move through the slide, you are going to see pictures of our staff and our kiddos. We have tried to ensure that we are keeping the Claymont spirit alive as we move along. Again, Team Cougar, staff and students are all participating. You'll also be able to see some of our bulletin boards that are throughout the building. Normally you would have been in the building. So we wanted to make sure that we're able to capture some of those things for you. We just want you to know that connecting home and school makes us a great community of learners. So families, we appreciate that you reach out to us when there are concerns. We appreciate when staff and students are doing things well, reaching out and letting us know. We know that that's what makes a great community of learners. So as we move through the slide, again, the next slide is just some pictures of Team Cougars working together. At the end, the last day of school, we had a hot cocoa bar for staff. They were very excited to have cocoa delivered to their classroom. And then on the other side is our nutrition staff, who make sure that our kiddos are fed great meals every day. So our agenda for tonight is going to be, as I stated, very quickly, but we hope that it is going to be very informative. We will first have up, Mr. Romano, next slide, please. We will first have up Mr. Romano, who will talk about the school year so far and upcoming events. Then I will jump in and talk about Title I. What is it? What does that look like? What does that even mean? Then Dr. Tartaglione will talk a little bit about MTSS. There goes one of those jargon, and she's going to break it down for you, what it means and how we go about it. And then Ms. Jackson and Mr. Burks will talk about PBIS and what that means for our building. So again, if you have questions and you are currently here with us, please feel free to ask them in the chat. If we can't get back to you today, we definitely will follow up, but our goal is to make sure that we're able to answer your questions. And if you think of something later, again, reach out to our admin team. Mr. Romano, I'll turn it over to you.
Welcome to all of our Cougar families. I'm Mr. Romano, one of the assistant principals here at Claymont. Just want to talk to you about a few of the events that we have had so far throughout the year. Ms. Stewart had an opportunity to share a photo album of all the wonderful things we've been doing throughout the year. So we welcome back our families with a drive-through event where you were able to stop and meet your teachers. It was unique, but given the pandemic, it was something that we felt needed to be done. We had a reading night as well. We celebrated Spanish Heritage Month from September to October. We had a math night where we had a couple handfuls of families that were able to join us via Zoom. We celebrated breast cancer awareness by rocking our pink back in October. That was pretty cool as well. We had our pumpkin patch pickup where we gave out hundreds of pumpkins. That was pretty exciting. We also had our first outdoor fall book fair. That was interesting because if you were there, man, we saw the clouds coming. It was getting pretty dark. We thought for sure we were going to get rained on. However, we were able to weather the storm per se and got out nice and dry. We've also been recognizing our kind Cougars during the months of October and November. It's something actually that we tend to highlight throughout the year. We celebrated some holidays around the world throughout December. We've also been looking at cooperation last month. We also celebrated Spirit Week. That was pretty cool as well, where we were rocking our Cougar yellow and gold purple and gold, as well as um, we had Crazy Hair Day. So, I rocked it out then. We had a twin day where we had upwards of, I believe the largest group that we saw kid-wise, we had quintuplets. So 5 students were able to dress up together. That was pretty exciting. And then we're celebrating this month, Women History Month, which is held in March. A couple pictures. Again, Ms. Stewart was able to share the photo album. It's something that we'll be sharing with the final presentation that we send out. So we have a couple things coming up. Right now, we are going through some Cougar resolutions, celebrating the new year. Our school counselors, Rob Stevenson and Avery Sherrod, right now they are working on a one word. So one word that they students can think of that will help motivate them to keep moving. What is it that you want to do? They've really been spending some time talking about the growth mindset and fixed mindset. I was in a classroom today and they were doing an activity with that. We also have an art contest coming up. So classes are participating in the Black History Month mural. So they're submitting their art projects to our art teacher, Miss Mock. And we have a pretty cool way of being able to present the winners to you. So stay tuned. I don't want to share too much information at this time. We have Music History Month coming up in 2 months, March. It's pretty cool. Miss Rash, our music teacher, does a really good job putting that together. We will be having some recorded parent workshops coming up. Of course, our school play and the spring concerts. We're also going to be participating in a One School, One Book. Dr. T, could you share the book name? Forget the name off the top of my head.
I think, Mr. Romano, we're still investigating the book to make sure that we can also get it for our students in Spanish immersion. So we're going to do a big rollout of that information coming up soon.
Okay. So even given the COVID and the pandemic that we're going through right now, as you could see, we are doing our best to be able to provide for our families and our students, just not academically, but trying to meet the whole child.
So again, to parents that have joined later on, this is being recorded. So feel free to go back and look at the introduction. We thank you all for being here, and those of you that will view it later, thank you too. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Title I because you've probably heard that Claymont Elementary is a Title I school. So again, the next slide is just, I believe, some more photos of staff and or students at Claymont Elementary. Mr. Romano. Wanted to talk a little bit, if you go back a slide, our Claymont families. We wanted to take a moment and shout out, one more. Thank you. Shout out our support team of social workers, school counselor, family crisis therapists, also known as our FCT, our school psychologist and nurse. During the holidays, they have been very busy just ensuring that our families are supported through those holidays. So I just wanted to take a moment when we talk about Team Claymont and recognize them for all of their hard work. So as we get into what is Title I and what does that mean actually, we'll talk about family engagement, and then we'll talk a little bit about the budget, because as a Title I school, we are provided some funds above and beyond other schools that are not. So what is Title I? And I will briefly go through some of the things that it is. Keep going, Mr. Romano. You can see Mr. Burks in there entertaining kiddos during the holidays. Next slide. So what is it? It helps disadvantaged students meet state academic, content, and performance standards. If you all remember pre-COVID, and those new families, welcome, but if you have been with us for a while, we were fortunate enough to go through a process with this Department of Education that really had us focus on the needs of our students and supporting our teachers. And we were able, after coming out of that that work with the Department of Education, we were able to meet exceeds twice. It is our goal to get back to exceeds. Our staff and students worked really hard to meet grade level standards and to grow. And we attribute some of that to being a Title I school. So according to the U.S. Department of Education, the purpose is to ensure that all children have a fair, equal, and significant opportunity to obtain a high quality education and reach at minimum proficiency on challenging state academic achievement standards and state academic assessments. So that is always our goal at Claymont, regardless of whether we were a Title I school or not. It is the Brandywine School District goal, just to ensure that we are meeting the needs of all of our students. And you may say, well, how did Claymont get identified? Well, there are several factors, and one of those is that a minimum of 10 students per school, or at least 2% of school-age children in the district are eligible for free or reduced lunch. Hence is why we have been identified as a Title I school. And families, as I stated, we go through this. If you have questions, please feel free to put them in the chat box. So just a quote, at the end of the day, the most overwhelming key to a child's success is the positive involvement of parents. So thank you, parents, so much for working with us, for being collaborators and supporters and alerting us to when there are, again, concerns, but also when there are wonderful things happening. So thank you so much for doing that. We know that working together, we can help meet the needs of your child. So family engagement and Title I requirements. So one of the things that as a Title I school, we have to outreach to our parents, and hopefully you all are receiving my weekly messages. I try to keep you informed as much as possible. And I've always said this, if your life is anything like my life, it gets very busy. So having it in an email and knowing what's coming up helps tremendously. We also have a family engagement policy that I will send out with this email. And it just really talks about what are our roles and responsibilities and doing all of those things. So what are we doing to ensure that your child's meeting success, and how can you as the parent help us? If you are interested in joining our family engagement team, and that team is the one that comes up with the pumpkin patch pickup, the reading night, we are really interested in family input. I will be sending out a survey on Sunday. I try to stick to Sundays so that you all know when everything is coming in. But it will be a survey there that we're going to ask parents to complete along with the link for this presentation. And I will also have the PowerPoint in a PDF in case you want to go back and just reread it. But if you are interested in being a member of our family engagement team, Mrs. Williams, Laura Williams, is the head of that. Whatever you can give, whatever ideas that you have, we would greatly appreciate it. Another piece of the family engagement in Title I, back one, Mr. Romano, thank you, is that we are communicating. Again, we use regroup, email, class dojo, telephone. So we're trying to reach you in as many avenues that we can. So we appreciate, your input. I always tell this story. I used to do my regroup at 6 o'clock, and then people started telling me that was in the middle of football. So I changed it to 4:02 just randomly. So I hope that time, I haven't had a lot of pushback. So I'm hoping that time is okay. And then the final thing that we will tell you about is teacher credentials. And by that, we mean sometimes we have teachers who are teaching one area and they might go to another. So they might be what we call a general education teacher, but then we might ask them to work specifically with our English language learners or our students with disabilities. Well, when that happens, they may not all the time be credentialed or have their certificate. So you may get a letter from me saying this teacher is working toward this certificate. So we really try to ensure that communication is open between the school and the families. Next, Mr. Romano. Again, here's some of our kiddos working hard, having some fun there too. So the budget. So we do have money allocated because we are a Title I school, and you might ask, well, where does that money go? So some of that money goes to our staffing. It may be our interventionists, academic tutors, and our academic tutors are for reading and math, and they do small group pull out for students in what we call Tier 2. And Dr. Tartaglione, or as we call her, Dr. T, will talk a little bit about that. It could also go toward our specialists, our reading and math specialists. Another piece of that, a smaller piece of that goes toward family engagement activities, such as our welcome back, car ride, our fall harvest, book giveaways, things like that. It also helps support our workshops that we have that will be coming up and recorded for you to view at your own time. We know it gets super busy. We also know that you're probably on Zoom a lot. So we wanted to give you an opportunity to view it at your own time and pace. It also would go to curriculum. So if we needed to purchase extra curriculum, it would go there, or our tier 2 and 3 interventions that are research-based, it could go there. And then finally, it will go toward professional development, curriculum-based, student behaviors, or academic. So we really try to plan out where that money is going and how we can help them. And Ms. Joelle, I'm sorry, if you could email that to Dr. T, we can look into it, okay? We definitely want to make sure that we address concerns. And it could be, and I'm sorry, I didn't see your last name, but it could be that your child is receiving support, but let us look in to see what's happening, okay? And thank you so much for your question. So again, we utilize all of these resources to assist. And I think that is my last slide. Again, here's a picture that's in our hallway. We want to make sure that our school feels like a school. So this is from our kindergarten Spanish immersion classroom. And I believe up next we have Dr. Tartaglione, or Dr. T, and she's going to tell you a little bit about MTSS, what it stands for and how it works at Claymont Elementary. Dr. T?
Thank you, ma'am. And so, hello, everybody. It's so great to see you this evening. And as Principal Stewart mentioned earlier, this is one of those phrases that is educational speak that we throw around. So we really want to make sure that you understand it when you hear it. So MTSS stands for Multi-Tiered Systems of Supports. Mr. Romano, if you could click to the next slide, there's a little bit of an explanation. And so actually this picture right here, the one that you just saw, is part of that process. So that was a small group session, which I'm going to talk about in just a few minutes, where some of our tutors and support staff work with small groups as needed. So a multi-tiered system of supports is looking at whole groups within the building, smaller groups, and then individualized depending on the needs, and really using data to help us understand where the needs are. So tier 1 is the entire school population. That is our core group building wide. Tier 2 is when we look at a smaller group if we need to provide extra supports using specialized interventions that are research-based. And then tier 3 is even more intense individualized supports if those interventions are not successful. So there are key things to every system that make it strong. So one of those things is ensuring first that we have very high quality academic materials and that our curriculum is solid. And we do have that. Our bookworms program and our math curriculum Eureka, as well as the supplemental programs, are the highest ones that we could find. So we are very proud of using high quality instructional materials. When we ensure that our instruction is solid and reaching all of our students, we can then look at the data and see where we need to support. So part of that is looking at the system that we have in place for behavior interventions, teaching expectations, acknowledging our students for their academic growth, for their positive behaviors, and then supporting students as needed if we recognize there might be a need. Another part of it is flexibility. So we look at the needs of the students and we figure out what needs to be there to support them, to support the whole child, academic, behavior, social, emotional, and to partner with families to make sure that we're meeting all the needs throughout their school day and then also their home if possible. And that last piece is data collection, because we don't know if it's working unless we have data to show us that it's working. So we make sure that there is data along the way. We have teams that review that data, from the teacher to the grade level teams to the admin teams. And it's kind of like a cycle where we decide what the supports are and then review if those supports are working. And Mr. Armando, so this is just one of our super exciting events that we've held, and one of the ways that we connect with our students, because we know that relationships are key to student success. So this was right before Christmas as part of our Spirit Week. And this slide kind of wraps up what we were talking about for MTSS and giving some examples. So there are two halves, if you would, for MTSS. There's an academic side and the behavior, social, emotional side. And both of those are at all 3 levels. So tier 1 on the academic side, we look at the high quality curriculum. When we need to provide extra supports, we call it DI, which sometimes parents might not know what that is. And that is a special time in our schedule where we have small groups and we look to see what skills students need to work on. And we organize the classroom so that they're in those groups to provide those extra supports. So if you hear that there might be an academic tutor or another teacher working with your child, that's because we use data, we identified a need, and we organize them so that we could support and work on skills. RTI is another word for small groups, and that's the math side of it, where it's a similar concept, where we look to see what skills they might need to work on and organize our classroom so that we're really working on that. On the behavior side, throughout the building, throughout the day, we teach behavior expectations. We talk about what it means to be a good student, what it means to be a good scholar and learning academic, to make friends and positive supports. So we teach that as part of the everyday. And then if we need to support students, sometimes we just kind of focus individually. So we really focus on relationships and then restorative practices if we need to work on maybe learning how to interact a different way. And then social skills lessons through our counselors, maybe mentoring, maybe special check-ins if we identify that students need those extra supports. And just to wrap up that section, we know that schools with strong family involvement are 4 times more likely to improve student reading and 10 times more likely to improve math results. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to our Principal Stewart.
Thank you so much, Dr. T, for that information. So when you hear MTSS families, you will know what we're talking about as far as supporting your child. So one of the things we really want to emphasize is that we have numerous supports within our building, and it's based on data. So we really like to have the data, one, to ensure that the intervention is working. We want to make sure that kids are growing, and we want to make sure we have the data to support it. And that could mean that there are several interventions happening different times. So generally, we know that in order to see change in students, it takes about 6 weeks. So we know that sometimes we want to see that quick fix, but research has shown us that between 6 to 8 weeks is the time period that you can have a good amount of data to show whether that intervention is working. And as we're talking about interventions, I will now introduce Dana Jackson, one of our Dean of Students, and Ed Burks, the other Dean of Students. So you may have heard from them or seen them or have, your children talk about them, and they're going to talk a little bit about PBIS. Ms. Jackson, I believe you're up first.
Good evening, families. Good evening, my team. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. So PBS is a way for us to make school rewarding, encouraging, and uplifting for our students. We have some carefully chosen activities, but first we want to talk about our reward system. Mr. Burks.
Hi guys, I'm Ed Burks. I'm the Dean of Students, the other Dean of Students here at Claymont. So just to get a little bit into our positive behavior, intervention, and support we've been using here at the school. We've been using a digital tracking form, which is really cool and really awesome for the kids. As you might know, we used to use something called Cougar Cash, in which kids with these little fake dollar bills with a Cougar on it. And once they got so many, they were able to trade them in for different toys, candy, trinkets, things like that, pencils, erasers that we may have at school. Really good. Kids loved it and enjoyed it. Well, with everything going on, a pandemic, and just looking at our carbon footprint in the world, we decided to move a little bit more digitally. So we have the PBIS digital system online. And so teachers are able to give what is equivalent to Cougar Cash or a token or earned point through our digital system. So our kids are able to keep the points in their system in the classroom. And when they earn enough of those points, they're able to trade them in. Each classroom can create their own little store where they can get their little pencils and things like that, erasers that teachers can give out to them. And so once they earn enough points, but also when we have bigger events, as you might know, we used to have things like the moon bounces that would come in and things of that nature. And we hope to getting back to having some big events. But when we have those, they're able to trade in their points to go and attend these events. So it's really something to work forward for. Just us recognizing their kindness and the characteristics they're showing in the building is amazing. At school, we use it school-wide. Like I said, each classroom has their own little store built in. Also on this, I want you guys to know, you might not have seen much, but we also have Cody. He's our new mascot that came this year. Cody is awesome. He's Cody, the kindest cougar in town. He just really wants to show everybody how kind he is. He's always helping out, and the kids love him when he comes around. He's an awesome guy. So on to the next slide. I'm going to let Ms. Jackson take over and describe some of the other things that we've been going on and we've been integrating into our PBIS system.
So our PBS team, or our positive behavior team, meets regularly, and we plan activities and events for our students, staff included, and sometimes parents get involved. Cody's always nearby. Mr. Romano mentioned some of the activities down below, but we talked about our PBIS digital platform where students can show us their respectful, responsible, cooperative, and safe behaviors throughout the school day. They get to cash those in for fidgets, toys, time with staff, games, Cody the Cougar, mascot visits. They love that. We have a kindness kid of the month. Students who show these traits get celebrated. They get called out on the announcements, and we really play that up. Our school spirit days, we have tons of them. We had a no bully day just to encourage kindness, to identify what bullying is so students could be educated there, and to encourage us to be advocates for ourselves, others, and maybe even the bully, right? We had winter theme days. That was a wonderful month. We're planning on ties and tiaras to promote pride and confidence. Some of our very own kindness kids of the month chose the days for Word on Your Shirt Day and Favorite Animal Day. So that's personal from our very own kind Cougars. We've had Mindful Monday. We continue we're continuously update bulletin boards and posters around the school. We have a kindness theme now. Our new theme coming up next will be a growth mindset theme that our school counselors are helping to create with students. A New Year, New You resolutions board too as well. And of course, we have our Black History Month poster contest, as well as our monthly events or celebrations as like Women's History Month, Indigenous Peoples Month, Hispanic History Month, excuse me, I'm getting tongue-tied, and Black History Month, to name a few. Here we have a PBS trifold. This is primarily for our parents at home and our staff, students if they were interested, but basically, this is our informational tool and a resource to explain what PBIS is to families. It shares our pledge. It tells us the parts of PBS. It also includes what teachers do in the classroom, just so parents have an idea, kind of. It includes our morning meetings, our check-ins, our social connection. Our teachers share academic education, but we also talk about social and emotional health, mindfulness, and wellness. We even encourage movement in the classroom, however we can. That would even be some of our breaks outside. To take a mass break would be part of that feeling good activity. We also talk about what parents can do at home and why this is so important. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Jackson and Mr. Burks, of course, Mr. Romano and Dr. T for sharing just a little bit with parents. So parents, again, we thank you so much for your time. We also want to remind you, we are on social media. We are everywhere, and we hope that you are following all of the wonderful things that are happening. It's so great to have our kiddos back in the building and to see them working very hard. And again, families, we do appreciate your cooperation and your understanding during this time period. It is a lot happening here. We're doing our best to ensure that students are getting what they need and being safe while that is happening. Also, as a reminder, I will be sending out a survey in reference to just what kinds of support you'd like to see from us, what's happening. And it's going to be very brief, I promise you. We just want to get a little bit of information on how we can better support you as families and support our kids at our school. Do we have any questions? Because again, you know, we appreciate you taking time out of your day to hear a little bit about what's happening in the school. Any questions that we can answer? And again, if you think of something later on, feel free to reach out to any member of my administration team. We will get back to you as soon as possible. I know we pride ourselves on making sure that we have a quick turnaround time, even if it's just to say to you that we received your message and we're investigating, or, you know, we've contacted the teacher and asked them to reach out to you. We do encourage you, if you have those kind of academic concerns, to always reach out to the classroom teacher first. They probably would have a little bit more information than we might have, but we'll gladly support and follow up and do those things to ensure that you feel like you've gotten answers and that your child is supported. We also would like to recognize, we have with us Mrs. Vina Jones Davis. She is the elementary director for the Brandywine School District. So she is also on here. Thank you so much for joining us today. So if there are no further questions, thank you, Mrs. Hearn. If there are no further questions, we will stop the recording now. And again, families, we do appreciate you entrusting your child with us. We are happy to have them. We can see them kind of smiling through with their mask on through their eyes. And it's just a great feeling to have them back in the building and to, you know, to love on them and for them to love on us. So again, have a great evening and we thank you for joining us. Good night.